I'm Jessica.
I'm Emmalynn.
And in today's video, we are going to be talking about the books we read in the very long month of January.
Not as many books for how long it felt.
I know.
Or maybe if it wouldn't have felt so long, I would have read more.
That's true. The book that I read first feels like I read it months ago. Which was...
Oh, see, this was my first. Okay.
So
Well,
two books we read the same. Or two books we both read this month.
Mm-hmm.
And this book was my first book of the month that I read, and it's your last book of the month that you read. Okay.
And it's a book of the month.
And that is Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney.
If you would go back and I don't even know if we made videos then, but whenever I read Daisy Darker, I have the same feeling of I enjoyed it in the moment, but now I'm like, what was that?
Yeah. So when I was reading this book, it was I was intrigued. My curiosity was piqued. I wanted to know what was going to happen. But then when it was finished, I was just that was weird. It was a weird time.
And I don't know if it's what I was wanting out of it. And also it being on an island. Daisy Darker's on an island. This felt like rock, paper, scissors.
At the first.
Had a baby.
Yeah.
With Daisy Darker.
I feel like the first half felt more like rock, paper, scissors, and the second half felt more like Daisy Darker.
Because there was almost a, not magical element, but it felt like it.
And there was more, I felt like at the beginning, there was more of psychological things where you weren't sure if it was real or if it was in his head. And then it just got weird.
Yeah, I just feel like it was a perfect combination of those two books.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Not my favorite.
So if you don't know what this is about, just really briefly, it's about a man who's on the phone with his wife one day. She gets out of her car to look at someone who's lying in the middle of the road, and then she disappears. And he's an author. He's been struggling to write since she disappeared. So his editor, I think, or publicist, both?
I don't know.
Anyways, his editor or publicist, who's also their family friend, encourages him to go to this island to try to get away, to stir his creativity, to get his mind out of his wife being gone. It's been a year, I think. And then he starts seeing someone who looks like his wife, and then it just kind of goes from there. Yeah. But it's very odd.
No rating.
Yeah, I don't even, I still don't know what I would rate it. And then the second book I read was Beg, Borrow, or Steal. I want to say and. By Miss Sarah Adams. Emmalynn got me this for Christmas, and it's a signed copy. And it has this cutesy little bookmark, and it had some art with it as well. But I absolutely love this. This follows Emily, who is one of the three sisters, the three Walker sisters, and her nemesis teaching fellow, Jack.
Yeah, who she's also known since college.
So they were college nemesis.
Nemesi.
And then they ended up teaching at the same elementary school in her hometown. And he left, and then out of nowhere he comes back. And so it's their situationship that turns into a relationship. But it was very funny.
There were so many other plots going on.
Yes. I love that. So this is the third book in the When in Rome series. So we have When in Rome, Practice Makes Perfect, and then this one. And I love how as the books go on, we get glimpses of the other siblings as well. And this one was the most. We get the most screen time, if you will, for the other siblings. And I really liked that. So I don't know.
It's an Emmalynn
everything Sarah Adams for me has everything in this series at least has been a 5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
I still think Practice Makes Perfect is my favorite out
fair.
of the 3. But I did really enjoy this, obviously.
I just really liked Emily's character.
I have nothing bad to say about it.
They both had a lot of growth.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
Yep. So, loved that one.
The next book I read, I just listened to the whole thing, and that was The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop. And I don't rate memoirs, but I will say it was very, very interesting. I thought everything was talked about for the right amount of time because, I mean, she's had a long and very successful life. I will say I think the title, I don't think it was meant to be deceptive, but there's not a ton about Gilmore Girls. It's more about, like, her career in plays and that kind of thing, like, starting up in New York in, like, her 20s and 30s, which I thought was really interesting. But if you literally only care about the Gilmore Girls aspect, I wouldn't say it's for you.
I picked up Lethal Kings, which is the sequel to Mortal Queens. And this book picks up right where Mortal Queens left off. I can't really say a whole lot about this book because it's a sequel, but I would highly encourage anyone who... I haven't read Cruel Prince, but it gives me the vibes of what I know about the Cruel Prince, because in this world the Fae are, like, very deceptive. They lie and manipulate a lot and use those things to trick people into, like, bargaining different ways. But this one was really interesting, and I think I liked this one better because it also had a game element, so it kind of gave, like, Carval vibes as well. So I really liked this one, I think, better than Mortal Queens, but I really enjoyed... This is probably, like, not quite a 5-star series for me, but pretty close. I really enjoyed it, and I think this author is vastly underrated. So if you like fantasy with a hint of romance but clean, I would highly suggest looking into Victoria McCombs.
My next book is, I'm going to talk about, technically there's 3 of them that I read, and that is The Unselected Journals of Emma Emmalynn. I read volumes 2, 3, and 4 this month. They're all, if you average them out, they're sitting around the 200 page mark. I think with every one she publishes, they get a little bit longer, which I enjoy. I feel like these, I had never heard of them, and now I'm seeing tons of people read them. Chantel Reads just marked it as read a day ago. I've seen a couple people on Bookstagram talk about them. And this is kind of like a series of personal journals, almost similar to the literary, what's it called? Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Pie Society. How it's like kind of in letters, but instead this is in diary format. There's still dialogue and stuff. She's just like recounting her day, so sometimes she'll like pause the dialogue for her inner monologue. It's really entertaining. And a just quick summary of it says, the year is 1883 and Emma Emmalynn has returned to her London neighborhood of St. Crispin's. Emmalynn offers up her unselected journals, however self-incriminating they may be, which comprise a series of novella-length volumes. Armed with wit and a sideways amusement, Emma documents the curious realities of her life at Lapis Lazuli House. And the best thing I can say about this is that it's like, it feels like if Gilmore Girls was Regency, because, like, everyone is just so close to each other. There's lots of, like, silly drama going on in the town. There's a store where it's, like, one of its main purposes is that it's a lost and found. So you're like, is there one townsperson that's just, like, a kleptomaniac stealing everyone's stuff? Because you'll just randomly, something will disappear and you'll go to the read and write to see if they have it there. Like, just silly things like that.
That's funny.
So I'd say they're really entertaining. If you want to, like, kind of dip your toes into historical fiction, I think that would be a good place to start. Aren't they on Kindle Unlimited too? Yeah, all of them are. I do want to own them because they're so cute, but...
Okay. This book I picked up kind of on a whim. I've had it on my Goodreads TBR for years, and then I saw it at Second and Charles, so I picked it up. And this book was absolutely stunning, beautiful. If you love magical realism, you would absolutely eat this up. So the beginning of this book, we find a girl named Ayla and her brother Miles, and it kind of gives Chronicles of Narnia vibes because it's taking place during World War II. They're sent to live with a family friend of their mother. Their mother's just recently passed away, and their dad's having to go enlist in the war. And so they go to this family friend's home in a place called Sterling. And they've never really, they have no recollection of ever visiting this place or meeting these people. But as soon as they get there, they feel like something weird is going on with this town. And they quickly realize that there are disappearances that have been taking place in this town every 7 years. And it's like every 7 years, they never know what's going to disappear. So like the stars have disappeared. Dreams have disappeared. The ability to smell things has disappeared. Color has disappeared. So it's like this town has a curse, and they know they have this curse, but they can't do anything about it. So for some reason, the townspeople think that this curse is tied back to Ayla and Miles's mom. And so Ayla spends her time there trying to uncover if it does indeed have something to do with her mom, or if it's just like something else that she can figure out to prove the town wrong. And it's very interesting. It kind of gave me like Night Circus vibes too. Maybe that was just like the magical realism aspect, but like the descriptions were really realistic, I guess, and made you really feel like you were there. And so that reminded me of Night Circus. But I highly recommend this. I will be on a search for like everything else this author has written and devouring it as soon as I get my hands on it.
This book is A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. And you'll catch a pattern that like all of my books were slightly disappointing. And I don't know if that's my fault or what. I'd say if you haven't read any of her adult books, start here because it will only get better. All of her other books have a very strong magical realism element. This definitely had one, but not as much as the others, and I think that's why it let me down a little. It's just because I expected it.
Yeah.
And it mainly just is a mystery. Still very atmospheric. I love her writing so much. It's just genuinely one of the best, and you can picture everything so vividly. It almost reminded me of like the show Virgin River, and there's lots of drama and mystery in that. There's lots of drama and mystery in this, and this follows James Golden, and her twin brother Johnny just died, and she's convinced that it wasn't actually an accident. He was a photographer working on like a wildlife project in Six Rivers, California, so Northern California. And she was living down in, I think it was San Francisco, and she works at like something, I don't know where she works specifically, but she's an artist. And so she would, have her galleries and things, and they just didn't really see eye to eye. He caused a lot of problems in her life, and once she left the town, she just didn't really want to go back because of some other deaths and things that happened in the town previously. But she's always felt like they have some almost supernatural connection to each other. Like when something happens to him, she can almost feel it too. And so that's why she's convinced that it's not an accident, and proves to be true. It wasn't just an accident. So what did happen? It's just, there's so much talk about different arts in this book, which is also really cool because you read the premise and you think it's just going to be like super outdoorsy, but it talks about artists and photography and being an art teacher and you know, how you find fulfillment with your creative passion.
The next book I read, which I'm realizing I went out of order, but anyways.
I'm so out
The
of
last
order.
book I'm going to talk about is Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. This whole series is on Kindle Unlimited, so if you're interested in reading it, you can check it out for free there. So I went ahead and bought this because I really liked the end pages and the way the naked hardcover looks. Okay. This book has gotten a lot of hype from a lot of people. I really value their opinion. So I don't know if that set me up for failure. I liked this book okay. It was like a 3.5 star read for me. So this follows a girl named Diem, who is a mortal girl living in a world that is ruled by immortals who are descended from different gods. So you have like the descended, who are the royalty, the mortal people who are just like the commoners of the land. And she and her mother are healers in this world. So they work for the common people and the descended. And her mother goes missing. So she's like coping with that, doesn't really know anything about where she could be or if she's coming back, if she's alive. And so she has to take her mother's place as a healer for the royal family. And while she's there, she kind of starts to see them in different light, realizes that everything she's been taught about them isn't necessarily true. But then she has her lifelong friend named Henry, who is actually like a hater of the descended. And there's this whole group of people who are rebels. I can't remember what they're called, but they're basically wanting to start an uprising against the descended to like go to war with them because they are sick of the way that the descended treat them. So at the end of this book, we learn something about Diem that kind of changes the trajectory of the story. So that made me want to read the second book, which I'm actually in the middle of now. And I will say I do like it a lot more than this book already. It's a lot more fast-paced. There's a lot going on. There's much higher stakes. So that's making it more interesting. This book is kind of like setting up the world and how it operates and the caste system and all of that. So it's a little slower paced. But I've heard people say didn't you see people like this book more than the second one?
Yeah, I've seen
Which
people
I don't-
that are disappointed
I don't
in the
get
rest
that.
of the series.
And I don't know, where this, depending on how book 2 ends is, I guess will determine if I decide to keep going with it. But overall, it's interesting. It's easy to read. It's not a complicated fantasy world. It's just not like revolutionary. A lot of it is like a lot of tropes that have already been done, especially like I feel like the healer trope is like played out a little bit, but it's fine. And the second book is better. So if that's any encouragement, if you've read this one and you were disappointed, pick up the second one because it definitely does get better in my opinion.
Okay, my last book is Destroy the Day by Bridget Kimmer. I can't believe I'm just now finishing this trilogy. I'm kind of ashamed. I think I read the second book in like 2022. So that's humbling. Or, yeah, probably. Anyways, I absolutely loved the first 2 books in the series. I think it should have been a duology maybe because the second book is shorter than the first one. I just feel like this book also is way too long. But also there's so much that doesn't make sense. Anyways, this follows Tessa and Korik. The series does, not this book. And Tessa is like not a healer because she doesn't have magical powers. She's just kind of a medic and an apothecary.
Yeah, that's basically
and her parents
were called healers, but they're not.
And
really.
There's like this sickness going around called Is it just
Fever
oh, just
sickness?
called the fever sickness. Okay. Anyways,
That's not very
they
creative.
believe there's this just this one cure, which is moonflower petals, which are really hard to come by. And of course, the rich people get more than the poor people, so the poor people are dying quickly, and everyone only gets a certain amount. And so she will go steal moonflower petals from the rich people, give it to the poor
like a
people.
Robin Hood kind of.
Yeah. And so alongside with her is this guy named Weston Lark who has been helping her. And then very early on in the book, she finds out that Weston Lark is actually Prince Coric. And he was sneaking out of the palace because he feels bad for the people and had befriended her and was helping her. And when she finds this out, she's so angry that she tries to sneak into the castle and is convinced she's going to kill the king. Healer herself is obviously not inclined to kill instead. And so then she begins to help the king and Coric try to figure out how to heal. There's so much happening in this book that you wouldn't even expect in the first one. My one complaint is there's a second POV or third POV in this book that is just way too much. This book is about Tessa and Coric, and there's more of the other POV in this book than anyone else. And that person also has a romance that's only in this book that like develops way further than Tessa and Coric's that had started in the very beginning. So it just lots of things didn't make sense to me. So I'm just gonna pretend the second book is how it ends.
That's fair. Yeah, just make our own ending.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, those are all of the books we completed in January.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of 2 right now, but I don't think I'm gonna finish them today.
Tonight,
So,
yeah.
Maybe I will, because, yeah.
I think I kind of did myself dirty because I was trying to save all my romance books I wanted to read for February,
Yeah.
and I feel like if I would have let myself read those, I maybe would have read more.
Yeah.
So, lesson learned.
Yep.
Let a mood reader be a mood reader and move on.
Yep. Bye.
Okay.
Let us know if you've read any of these books or what your favorite book was this month, and we will see you in our next video. Bye-bye.